Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty fascinating today. We've got this YouTube video, The Complete Works, Sobyo Vivekananda, 1.2.6 Karma Yoga Ship 6. Non-attachment is complete self-abnegation. And yeah, it's a mouthful, but it's from the Shravanam.org channel. And basically, we're going to try to unpack some of Swami Vivekananda's ideas on Karma Yoga.
It can be a little dense, but there's so much practical wisdom in there too. It's not just like philosophy in the clouds.
Right. That's what I'm excited about. It's about how we actually live in the world, right? Like how our actions matter.
Exactly. Vivekananda ties all our actions together. And not just, how they affect us personally, but how they ripple out and influence this bigger picture.
I've always been curious about that, this idea of interconnected actions. Like, it's not just about taking personal responsibility, but recognizing that everything we do kind of sets off this chain reaction.
Yeah. He's got this analogy that's really stuck with me. Like, think about a bunch of tuning forks. You hit one, and suddenly the others nearby start to vibrate too.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's like Vivekananda is suggesting that our thoughts and actions can kind of do the same thing. They send out these vibes that affect others no matter how far apart we are, or even like across time, kind of like we're all part of this invisible orchestra or something.
Whoa. Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing if you think about it.
It is. It makes you really stop and consider the weight of each choice, each action.
Totally. So if we're all that interconnected, can we even achieve like true perfection through the work we do? I mean, there's always going to be some unforeseen consequence, right?
Yeah, and Vivekananda gets into that too. He argues that there's really no action that's purely good or purely evil. It's more nuanced than that.
So even like the things we typically consider good could have unintended consequences.
Totally. Even simple stuff like talking, right? We generally think of that as a positive thing. But even that can harm microbes just by, the act of speaking. So there's always this duality to things.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just about the action itself, but also like what's the intention behind it and all the ripple effects, even the ones we can't immediately see.
Exactly. I don't know, it makes me think about those stories where someone tries to do some big good deed, but it ends up backfiring in a million ways they never anticipated.
Oh, yeah, those are the worst.
It kind of shows how limited we are if we're only focused on outward actions as the path to perfection.
So if perfection through action isn't really possible, what are we even striving for? What does Karma Yoga say is the real goal of our work?
It's a good question. And Vivekananda points out, this idea that we're all going to create this perfect world, a utopia where there's no suffering, no evil, that's just not realistic because life at its core is a struggle.
Right.
So Karma Yoga says it's not about those external achievements. It's about an internal shift. It's about, getting rid of selfishness.
Ah, so that's where non-attachment and self-abnegation come into play.
Absolutely. Those are key to his teachings.
They seem like really tough concepts to grasp, though, especially in a world where we're all about, results and achievement.
For sure. But Vivekananda frames it in a really interesting way. He says non-attachment is the key to overcoming suffering because we're always going to have that mix of good and evil coming from our actions.
It's unavoidable.
Yeah. So he says by detaching from the fruits of our labor, the rewards, the praise, we kind of mitigate those negative consequences.
So it's not about not caring about our work, but more about how we relate to the results of our work.
I think so, yeah. He uses this really powerful analogy to illustrate it. Think of a nurse taking care of a child.
Okay.
There's this inherent selflessness in what she's doing. She's not expecting some big reward or a pat on the back. It's just pure service.
Oh, I get it.
And Vivekananda is suggesting we kind of adopt that same mindset, act with care, with intention, but without getting fixated on what we'll get out of it.
So it's like shifting the focus from what's in it for me to how can I contribute? How can I help?
Exactly. And self-abnegation goes hand in hand with that. It's realizing, the world doesn't revolve around us. We're not indispensable.
It puts things in perspective, for sure.
Right. It kind of humbles you, helps dissolve that ego a little bit.
It makes me think of the story Vivekananda tells about Shuka, the son of that sage, Vyasa.
Oh, yeah, Shuka.
Yeah.
Known for his self-control, right.
Yeah. Said he was totally unfazed by all the luxuries and the neglect he experienced at King Janka's court.
A powerful example of how non-attachment can lead to inner peace, no matter what's happening around you.
It's like he reached this state where all the ups and downs of life, the good fortune and the bad, just didn't rattle him.
And that's precisely what Vivekananda teaches. True non-attachment frees us from being controlled by all that external stuff. So we don't experience those extreme highs and lows. We're balanced even when life throws curveballs.
That kind of stability is something we could all benefit from, right? But it also sounds like a radical shift from how we're usually taught to approach the world.
It is a challenge for sure. And what's really interesting is how Vivekananda ties this whole concept of karma yoga to other yogic paths.
You mean like bhakti yoga,
Yeah.
with its emphasis on devotion, and jnana yoga, the path of wisdom?
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, are they all kind of aiming for the same thing in the end?
It almost seems like it, right? Like different paths up the same mountain.
Yeah, I think that's what Vivekananda is getting at, because despite those different approaches, whether through action, devotion, or knowledge, they all seem to point towards the same goal: self-abnegation, shedding this idea of a separate self.
So it's not about following specific rules or believing certain things, but more about this fundamental shift in how we see ourselves and the world.
Precisely. And that's what I find so compelling about karma yoga. It's not about creating some perfect external reality. It's about cultivating this perfect inner state of selflessness, and that transcends any particular religion or dogma.
So it's really about the journey inwards, not outwards.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our true nature is far vaster and more interconnected than we often realize. It's a journey of letting go of the limitations of the ego and recognizing our inherent unity with all things. You know, when we were getting ready for this deep dive, I kept coming back to this one idea that Vivekananda keeps bringing up. Like when we're doing all this selfless service, he's saying we're not actually doing anything for the world.
That seems a little strange. If you're out there helping people, aren't you doing something for the world?
Yeah, it seems that way. But, like, he's pointing out that the world doesn't actually need us to, function. It's
Yeah.
been doing its thing for a long time, and it'll keep on going long after we're gone.
So are we just like these tiny specks in this grand scheme of things? That's kind of humbling, isn't it?
It is humbling, but it doesn't mean we're insignificant. I think what Vivekananda is getting at is that we need to detach our egos from all our actions. We get so caught up in being the hero, like, I'm single-handedly making this huge difference, and that just feeds our ego.
Right, right. So it's more about coming from a place of humility,
Yeah.
recognizing that we're just playing a small part in this, like, giant cosmic dance.
Exactly. And when we can approach service with that humility, we actually act with more clarity and effectiveness because we're not driven by the need to be recognized or, get something out of it. It's about the action itself, not all the praise and rewards.
It's almost like stepping out of the spotlight, letting go of the ego's need to be seen, and just focusing on being, like, a channel for positive change.
Yeah, I like that image. And when we do that, our actions become way more powerful because they're not all tainted by self-interest.
That's a real shift in how we usually think.
Yeah.
It's like realizing that true service is about meeting the world's needs, not like pushing our own agenda or trying to benefit from it.
Right. It's about letting go of control, honestly, allowing yourself to become like an instrument for something bigger than yourself.
This idea of letting go of control, it reminds me of non-attachment, that concept we were discussing earlier.
Totally. Because when we get attached to specific outcomes, we create so much resistance. And that's what often leads to suffering.
Because things rarely go exactly as planned.
Right. But when we surrender to the flow of life, we open ourselves up to all these possibilities we might never have even considered them before.
It's kind of like trusting that the universe has a plan, even though we can't see the whole roadmap.
Yeah, exactly. And that trust can help us get through those rough patches, all the challenges life throws at us. You can be more graceful and resilient, less reactive and more responsive.
So we can handle all those curveballs without losing that inner peace,
Exactly.
you know? While we're on this, I'm realizing how much of our suffering really does come from trying to control everything, even though so many things are out of our hands.
Oh, yeah. I think most people go through that. It's a
Yeah.
really human thing. And karma yoga, it gives us a way to step out of that suffering. It encourages us to surrender to how things are going, focus on what we can control, our actions, our intentions, and let go of the rest.
So it's not about being passive or giving up on our goals.
Right. It's about aligning our efforts with a higher purpose and trusting that things will unfold in a way that serves the greater good.
It's about being active participants, but with a detached mindset.
You got it.
What I really like about karma yoga is that it doesn't ask us to, like, renounce everything and live this super austere life. It feels very doable, like something you can practice right now in the middle of all the everyday stuff.
Yeah, I think that's one of the coolest things about it. Vivekananda was big on that. He said that true renunciation isn't about, going off and living in a cave or whatever. It's about detaching internally, letting go of all those selfish desires and attachments that lead to suffering.
So you can live in the world and have a spiritual practice too.
Absolutely. He was all about finding that balance between taking care of your responsibilities and nurturing your spirit.
It sounds like he was encouraging people to bring those principles of karma yoga into everything they do. Work, relationships, you name it.
Totally. He didn't like the idea of compartmentalizing. It's all integrated. Your spiritual practice, your everyday life, it's all woven together.
A lot of people have trouble with that,
Hmm.
bringing their spiritual side into their regular life. Any advice on how to bridge that gap?
It's about finding small ways to bring mindfulness and intention into your daily routine. Like maybe you start each day with a few minutes of gratitude, or you make a conscious decision to approach your work with a spirit of service.
So it's about making those small choices, but doing it consciously. Recognizing that even the little things can be part of your spiritual practice.
Exactly. He talks about transforming the ordinary into the sacred. Like you can find a deeper meaning in even the most basic tasks.
I bet that transformation takes time. You don't just wake up one day and suddenly everything's different.
Right. It's definitely a journey. You have to build new habits, be patient with yourself. You're going to hit some bumps along the way.
It makes sense. It's a process of growth, not a quick fix. As we've been talking, it's really hitting me that true happiness and fulfillment, they don't come from external achievements or possessions. They come from something deeper, an internal state of being that we cultivate through practices like karma yoga.
Yeah, that's a powerful realization.
Yeah.
And a lot of spiritual traditions touch on that. It's not something you can chase down. It's about an inner shift.
So you're saying that it's not about changing your circumstances, it's about changing your perspective.
Right. It's about shifting from a scarcity mindset, like that feeling that there's never enough, to a mindset of abundance and gratitude, recognizing that we're all interconnected and finding joy in just being alive.
So we already have everything we need for happiness. It's just a matter of tapping into it.
Exactly.
And karma yoga gives us a framework for accessing that inner peace and joy through selfless service, non-attachment, and cultivating compassion.
Yes.
I'm curious about one thing Vivekananda says, that good actions have this power to actually purify our minds.
Oh, that's fascinating, isn't it? He's suggesting that when we're doing selfless service, we're not just helping other people, we're cleansing our own minds too.
Like a two-for-one deal.
It is. It's like we're clearing out all the clutter,
Uh,
all that negativity, the self-centeredness, and then we create space for those positive qualities to emerge.
so you're saying that it's beneficial for both the giver and the receiver.
Exactly. And that purification over time cultivates this deeper sense of inner peace and harmony.
Which probably makes it easier to handle life's challenges.
Absolutely. When you're grounded in that inner peace, you're not so easily thrown off balance by all the stuff that happens. You're able to respond with more wisdom and compassion instead of reacting out of fear or anger.
So it's not that the challenges go away, but we get better at dealing with them.
Right?
Vivekananda also talks a lot about developing willpower.
Mm.
How does that fit in with karma yoga?
Willpower is essential for overcoming those old habits and patterns. The stuff that keeps us stuck. It's what drives us forward on the path of self-transformation.
So it's not about forcing yourself to do things you hate. It's more about finding that deep desire for growth and making sure your actions line up with that desire.
That's it. It's about harnessing your will to break free from those limitations from the past and creating a more fulfilling future.
I'm guessing that building willpower is also a process. It doesn't happen overnight.
Oh, for sure. It's like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And as it gets stronger, you become more capable of making choices that are in line with your highest aspirations.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
You act in alignment with your values, your will gets stronger, and as your will gets stronger, you make even better choices.
Exactly. And it keeps going. It pushes you forward on this path of self-realization, one step at a time, choice by choice.
And karma yoga reminds us that this isn't just about changing ourselves. It's also about making the world a better place.
Yes. Vivekananda really believed that personal transformation and social transformation, they were connected. He saw selfless service as a way to uplift everyone, not just ourselves.
So it's understanding that we're all connected. What happens to one of us affects all of us.
Exactly. It's about moving away from that me versus them mentality, that feeling of separation, and embracing a mindset of unity. Recognizing that we're all part of one big human family.
Which can totally change how we approach big social issues.
Absolutely. When you see how interconnected we are, you become more compassionate. and you're more willing to work with others to make things fairer and more just.
So karma yoga isn't just a personal thing. It gives you a framework for making the world better.
Exactly. It connects personal growth with social responsibility. It
Nice.
recognizes that true liberation means transformation for both the individual and the collective.
I like that Vivekananda was all about the universal truth in spirituality. Like all religions are different paths, but ultimately they're all aiming for the same thing.
Yeah, that's a message of unity. He saw that at the heart of all religions is this cultivation of love, compassion, and selflessness. It doesn't matter what the specific beliefs or rituals are.
So it's about seeing that common thread in all spiritual traditions, that shared desire for transcendence and liberation.
Exactly. And that recognition, it helps foster understanding and respect between people of different faiths. Even though there are differences, we're all seeking the same truth in the end.
That's so important, especially in a world that's often divided by religious differences.
I agree. It's about building bridges, not walls.
So karma yoga isn't just a path to personal liberation. It's a path towards harmony between different faiths and global unity.
Exactly. It goes beyond cultures and religions, inviting all of us to embrace our shared humanity and work together to create a world that's more peaceful and compassionate.
Vivekananda often talks about cultivating fearlessness.
Hmm.
How does that tie in with the whole idea of karma yoga?
Fearlessness in this context doesn't mean you never feel fear. It means being brave enough to act according to your values, even when you are afraid.
So it's not about pretending you're not scared. It's about finding the strength to move past that fear and do the right thing.
Yeah, it's about understanding that fear is normal, it's human, but you don't have to let it control you. You can choose to act courageously, even when it's hard.
That takes a lot of strength. But I can see how living that way courageously would make for a more genuine and fulfilling life.
Definitely. When we let fear make our decisions for us, we tend to hold ourselves back and we miss out on opportunities. But when we choose fearlessness, we open ourselves up to new possibilities, new experiences that help us reach our full potential.
So it's about getting out of that comfort zone, being curious and adventurous, trying new things, and trusting that you have what it takes to handle whatever comes up.
Yes. Real growth often happens when you push yourself beyond your comfort zone. Those moments when you're challenged to step up and really be who you are.
So embracing those challenges, those are part of the spiritual journey.
They are. Challenges are opportunities. They help you grow and transform. They force you to face your limits and discover all this hidden strength you didn't even know you had.
So instead of seeing challenges as roadblocks, we should see them as stepping stones.
Exactly. It's all about the journey with all its ups and downs. Every challenge you overcome brings you closer to realizing your true nature.
As we've been talking about karma yoga, it's really struck me how it balances action with contemplation. It's not just about doing things, it's also about being.
I like that observation. It's not about blindly doing good deeds for the sake of doing them. It's about really understanding the nature of action and what comes from it. It's about being wise and thoughtful in your actions.
That there's a consciousness behind it, and intentionality.
Yes, you have to be mindful and aware of everything you do. Even the small actions have a ripple effect.
And over time, that combination of action and thoughtfulness probably makes our actions more aligned with our goals and with what's best for everyone.
Yeah. It's a constant process. Action leads to reflection, and reflection leads to refinement, and then it just keeps going. So consciousness evolves.
I really like that karma yoga is something everyone can access. Doesn't matter what your background is or what you believe.
It's true. It's open to anyone. You don't have to abandon your life or live without anything. It's something you can practice right here, right now, as you are.
It's a beautiful mix of the practical and the profound, isn't it?
It is. It gives you guidance for living a more meaningful life while making the world a better place.
It weaves together your personal and social life, the inner and the outer, the spiritual and the material. Everything's in balance.
Exactly.
And that balance, I'm guessing, is the key to finding true peace and happiness.
It is. When you're living according to your values, when your actions are driven by compassion and integrity, and you're focused on helping others, that's when you experience that deep peace and joy. It radiates from within.
So true happiness isn't about what's happening around you, it's about what's going on inside.
That's it. And karma yoga gives you the tools to cultivate that inner state through selfless service, non-attachment, and recognizing that we're all interconnected.
I appreciate how karma yoga encourages us to see the world as a classroom. Like every experience is a chance to learn and grow.
That's a great way to look at it. It helps you approach challenges with curiosity. You're open to learning from every single experience.
So you're not trying to avoid the tough stuff.
Yeah.
You're just looking at it differently, seeing challenges as opportunities to learn and grow. Even mistakes can be valuable lessons.
Yes, life is a journey with lots of twists and turns. And every experience, good or bad, can teach us something.
And being open to learning helps you become wiser and more compassionate.
For sure. Approaching life like a beginner makes you more receptive to new ideas and perspectives. You don't get stuck in your old ways of thinking, and you're more open to seeing the world through different lenses.
So humility is key. Recognizing that you don't have all the answers and there's always something new to learn.
Exactly. And that humility helps you connect with others with more empathy. You realize that everyone is on their own unique path, and every path is worthy of respect.
Vivekananda talks a lot about detaching from the results of our actions, and I have to say, I struggle with that sometimes. Can you explain what he means by that?
Of course, detaching from the fruits of your actions doesn't mean giving up on your goals or ambitions. It just means not getting fixated on a specific outcome. You should always aim to do your best, but don't get overly attached to how things turn out.
So focus on the journey, not the destination. Trust that things will work out, even if we don't understand how or why.
Exactly. When we're attached to a specific outcome, we create anxiety and stress for ourselves. We're constantly worried about whether things will go our way. But when we let go of that attachment, it's like a weight lifts off our shoulders. We can just be present in the moment without all those expectations.
It's like shifting your focus from the goal to the process itself.
Yes. And that shift can be incredibly freeing. It allows you to experience life with more lightness and joy. Because you're not carrying that burden of expectation. You can simply be present with each moment as it unfolds.
It's about trusting the flow of life, trusting that the universe has a plan, even if we can't see the whole picture.
Exactly. It's about surrendering and recognizing that we're not in control of everything. And sometimes letting go is the wisest thing we can do.
The more we talk about karma yoga, the more I see how it keeps bringing us back to the interconnectedness of everything.
It's a fundamental principle. It recognizes that we're all connected, part of this larger web of life. And our actions, they ripple outward, affecting more than just ourselves.
So it's constantly reminding us that we're not isolated individuals. We're all threads woven into this tapestry of existence.
Exactly. And that realization naturally makes us feel more responsible for our actions.
Because our actions don't just affect us, they affect the whole web.
Exactly. And that awareness can really motivate you to live a more ethical and compassionate life. When you see how your choices impact others, you're more likely to make choices that benefit everyone.
So karma yoga is more than just finding personal liberation. It's also about creating a better world for all of us.
That's what it's all about. It's about combining personal growth with social responsibility, recognizing that true liberation involves transformation for everyone, both individually and collectively.
I'm curious about Vivekananda's take on death. It's something that often brings up fear and anxiety.
He didn't shy away from it at all. Instead of seeing death as something to be afraid of, he encouraged people to see it as a transition, like shedding your physical body.
So you're saying that it's not about denying death or trying to avoid it. It's about understanding its natural place in the cycle of life.
Exactly. And that understanding can be really freeing because then you can live more fully in the present moment. It helps you appreciate how precious this life is right here, right now.
It's like realizing that we're going to die makes us appreciate life even more.
Exactly. And this awareness can really make you want to live a life that has meaning and purpose, to make the most of the time you have.
It's about living fully, knowing that it's not going to last forever. And that makes every moment even more precious.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's about living intentionally, knowing that your time is limited, and seizing every opportunity to love, to learn, to grow, and to contribute to the world in a meaningful way.
So don't take this gift of life for granted.
Exactly. It really is. It kind of puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
It does. It's like even when things are tough, you can still find meaning and purpose.
And it's interesting how karma yoga changes the way we think about suffering.
Yeah, that seems a little backwards, right? Like
Wait.
embrace the bad stuff. But I don't think Vivekananda is saying we should go looking for hardship.
No, not at all. He's very clear that suffering is just part of being human. We can't escape it entirely. But he says karma yoga gives us tools to deal with it.
So we're not ignoring it. We're just trying to understand it better and find ways to get through it.
Exactly. And he says a lot of our suffering, it comes from being so attached to things, attached to outcomes, to possessions, even to our own sense of self.
That makes sense. The more we cling to those things, the more it hurts when they change or, disappear.
Exactly. So non-attachment is huge E in karma yoga. By loosening our grip on all those things we're trying so hard to control, we actually suffer less when things don't go our way.
It's like we're creating some breathing room between ourselves and our experiences, so we can see things more clearly without getting totally caught up in all the drama.
I like that. It's about being present without resisting what's happening.
So we're embracing life with all the good and bad, accepting it all as part of the human experience.
You got it. It's about finding peace and balance, even when things are chaotic. Because nothing stays the same forever, right? That's just the nature of reality.
Honestly, I find this whole detachment thing super hard, especially detaching from the results of my actions.
Hmm.
It just feels wrong to work towards something and not care about the outcome.
I know what you mean. It's subtle and it takes a while to really click. But what Vivekananda is saying is focus on the journey, not the destination. Do your best, but don't get hung up on how it all turns out.
So put your heart into it, but then let go of how it's received.
Right, because when we're so focused on a specific result, we just create a bunch of anxiety for ourselves. We're always worrying, did I do enough? Is it going to work out? But when we let go of that, we're free. We can just enjoy the process.
It's like trusting that things will unfold as they should,
Yeah.
even if we don't know the reason why.
Yes. It's about surrendering to something bigger than ourselves, letting go of that need to be in control.
It sounds like non-attachment is a path to inner peace and freedom.
It is. It's about letting go of all those things that hold us back, the fears, the worries. It's a way out of those cycles of suffering.
And throughout this whole deep dive, one thing that keeps coming up is the importance of compassion.
Compassion is central to karma yoga. Vivekananda believed it was the key to, unlocking our full potential and creating a world that's fair and harmonious.
So it's not just about doing nice things for people. It's about really feeling that empathy and care.
Yes. Recognizing that we're all connected and extending that compassion to everyone, regardless of who they are, or what they believe, or where they come from.
And when we feel that way, it changes how we relate to everyone, right?
It does. Compassion creates space for understanding, forgiveness, and connection. We're less judgmental, more supportive.
It's like shifting from us versus them to we're all in this together.
Right. That's a powerful shift. It can change our relationships and help create a more compassionate and harmonious society.
This reminds me of something else Vivekananda talks about, that fearlessness piece. How does that fit in?
Fearlessness in karma yoga, it doesn't mean you never feel afraid. It's about having the guts to do what's right, even when you're scared.
So we're not ignoring the fear, we're acknowledging it but choosing to act anyway.
Right. We all feel fear. It's part of being human. But we don't have to let it control us. We can choose to be courageous, even when it's difficult.
I can see how that would lead to a more authentic life. You're not letting fear hold you back.
Exactly. When we let fear make our choices, we tend to play it safe. We miss out on opportunities to grow. But when we choose to be fearless, we open ourselves up to all kinds of possibilities. We can really become who we're meant to be.
It's about getting out of that comfort zone, trying new things, and trusting that we can handle whatever comes our way.
Yes, because real growth often happens when we push ourselves beyond what feels safe and familiar. That's when we discover what we're truly capable of.
This has been an amazing exploration of karma yoga. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us.
It's been a pleasure. It's always great to dive into these topics.
Before we wrap up, I'd like to leave everyone with a thought. Imagine you're living these principles: non-attachment, selflessness, compassion, and fearlessness. What does your life look like? How do you move through the world? What kind of impact do you have on others?
That's a wonderful question. It invites us to envision a life of meaning, purpose, and service. A life where our actions come from a place of love and compassion, and we contribute to the well-being of all.
It's inspiring. It encourages us to take those small steps towards making those principles a reality in our own lives.
Exactly. It's a journey, one step at a time, one act of kindness at a time, one moment of presence at a time.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into karma yoga. We hope it's given you some food for thought. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.